Thank you for joining us for the FTZ webinar on creating and submitting your annual reports. My name is Victoria Cartwright, Director of Events and Education at FTZ, and today we are joined by Liz Whiteman. Liz Whiteman is a Senior Analyst on the Foreign Trade Zone staff, U.S. Department of Commerce. Liz joined the FTZ staff as an economist in 1998, primarily reviewing subzone and manufacturing applications. Her responsibilities also include providing outreach and education to the trade and other government agencies, as well as preparing the FTZ Board's annual report to Congress and monitoring ongoing zone activity. Liz is the primary FTZ representative working with U.S. Customs and Border Protection on integration into ACE, the new CBP automated system. She is also serving as FTZ staff regional representative for the Great Lakes region, including New York. You are welcome to type in your questions at any time, as our speaker will be answering them throughout the presentation. Liz, you may begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Victoria, and once again, welcome everyone, and thank you for joining us today. We know this is a topic that's on everyone's mind, and hopefully we can give you a lot of useful information as you're working on creating and submitting your annual report. We actually have a jam-packed hour here. We're going to be looking at both how to create a grantee report and how to submit an operator report. So we have a lot on our plate, but please feel free to ask questions at any time throughout the presentation. And hopefully we can address everything that comes up. But if not, then please feel free to contact us later also. Again, this webinar we're going to cover how to log into Office and how to create and submit your annual report for both grantees and for operators. Hopefully this page that will show up on your screen looks familiar. This is the FTZ Board main page. So this actually is a good source of information on zones and application processes generally, and hopefully it's something you're familiar with or we'll go back and take a look at. But where we're going to focus today is on the online FTZ information system, everyone's favorite source for submitting their annual report, and we like to call it Office. So if you go to our main page, you'll find Office, the link to Office, underneath the seal on the left-hand side of the page in that blue box there. So we're going to click on that box. And the page that will appear now is the Office main page. And you'll see in the menu on the left-hand side, there are a lot of options that are available to you without logging in. So this is actually your primary source of information on zones, on sites, on if you're looking at Federal Register notices or want copies of applications, this is where you'll go, and that information is publicly available to you at all times throughout the year. What we're going to focus on today is what happens when you log in and the screens that you'll see there. So we're going to click on the login button, and before we turn to the next page, I just want to clarify, if you're a grantee, if you're a new grantee contact, please give us a call if you don't have your login information. One account is set up for every grantee, and one account is set up for every operator. And if you're a new contact person at either a grantee or an operator that has submitted an annual report in the past, then contact us. We'll make sure you can get the information you need to log in. Now, if you're an operator that has recently activated within a zone, so this will be your first time submitting an annual report either at all or within a specific zone, you'll need a new account set up for you. And grantees are able to request that accounts be set up. So if you do not have an Office account, if you're an operator and you do not have an Office account to submit your annual report, contact your grantee. And your grantee will be able to log in and request that an operator account be established for you. And if you or the grantee has any problems, please let us know and we'll help you through that process. If you're a grantee, there are tutorials available on our website on how to request an operator account. We're not going to get into that today, but again, please call us if you're having any problems or can't find the tutorial. You'll notice, and I will point it out right now, on every page in Office, at the top of the page and towards the right-hand side, there is a link that says tutorial. And I don't know if I highlight it, if you'll be able to see it, but the link is available on every page in Office, and you do have access to that at all times. There are both training videos and slideshows there, and they will cover more functions than we'll be able to get to in today's presentation. Okay, so assuming we have our accounts, when we click on the login link, an option will come up for either a grantee sign-in or an operator sign-in. So, obviously if you're a grantee, click on the grantee sign-in. If you're an operator, click on the operator sign-in. And there are a few quirks about the Office system that we'll be talking about today. And the first one comes up with logging in. Unlike some other systems where you can copy and paste your username or your password into the box, if you try and copy and paste your information, your login information, into the Office box where it asks for that, it will actually create an error message. We think it's picking up characters, at the beginning or the end of the copy and paste. We're not sure exactly what it is, but you will need to type in your username and password directly. If you have any problems logging in, make sure that you are typing it in directly and not copying and pasting. Again, it's a little bit of a quirk with this system. And we haven't been able to figure out exactly why it's happening, but if you're having any problems logging in, that's the first troubleshooting you can do. And again, if you're having problems, if you're unable to log in, give us a call and let us know. We can work with you also. So once we've logged in, we'll see a Welcome to Office screen. Now the exact options that will be available to you now will depend on whether you're a grantee or an operator. And you can see in this example, the menu on the left-hand side has changed, and the second box in blue now says operator. So this is an operator that has logged in, and they now have new options available to them. What we're going to look at today is the Work on My New Annual Report section. And that actually ties us, we're going to go directly into the operator annual report submissions here. And you will always click on the Work on My New Annual Report section for the current year's report. So the current year's report, which we're talking about activity that happened in 2015 now, that will be available under this section in Office until December 31st. So this is another little quirk of the system. Until January 1st of next year, this is where you'll find your 2015 activity report. So even after you have already prepared, finalized, and submitted your report, if you want to go back and view what you submitted, you will click on the Work on My New Annual Report. Any reports that have been submitted by your company in the past, so for activity for 2014 or 2013 or sooner, they would be under the View Past Annual Report section. So again, the current year's report, which is 2015 activity, will be in the Work on My New Annual Report section. One other thing I will point out, again, this is the operator, the options that are available to an operator. You can change your password at any time, again, through those options on the left-hand side of the screen. And you can also update your contact information. If your email address has changed, you're a new contact person for an operator, you can let us know. You can update your own contact information in the system, and you would do that through that link right there on the left-hand side. But today we are going to focus on the annual report. So when we click on the Work on My New Annual Report link, the page that appears will be your annual report, what you will be submitting to the grantee. Now the exact questions and the exact numbering and what appears on the next few screens will vary. It may not be exactly what you see when you log in. We actually have 3 different types of operator accounts, and the reports are different for each operator type. So if it doesn't match exactly what you see, it's okay. The exact questions that you see and the question numbers will be different if you have a different type of account. Now, if you've gone in before and saved a report, so you've started working on it and then you saved it as a draft, when you log in, there will be an Edit button at the top, and you'll need to click the Edit button in order to be able to make any changes or to finalize and submit your report. And at the top of the page, when you're in edit mode, there will always be the Save as Draft button. So if you can't complete the report all in one sitting, which let's face it, most people probably will not, that's fine. You can save your work as a draft and come back and work on it later. Before finalizing your numbers, before submitting your report to the grantee, you will need to provide a response to each of the fields. So it will actually, if you don't answer all of the fields, there will be an error message and you will not be able to submit your report. Some operator types have text-based questions, and for those there are boxes that are provided. You're not limited by the size of those boxes. All of the information that you type in there may not appear all at once, but everything you put in those boxes will be sent to us. And you can copy and paste into those boxes also. I do want to point out, specific to MFG and MFGO operators, so if you're doing any manufacturing production activity, or if you're an oil refinery operator, you will have a few questions, and in this example on this screen, it's questions 10 and 11, that are grayed out in an italics. And that is the exception to having to answer every question. You do not need to answer those. And you'll see there are no response boxes provided next to those. Those were questions that we had originally had in the report. But after the 2012 regulations, we no longer needed responses. We didn't want to make you keep answering them. We wanted to reduce the burden as much as possible. So, but for technical reasons, we couldn't just delete them. There's a lot of calculations that are being done based on question numbers, and we couldn't just delete them. So what we did was gray them out, put them in italics, and remove the response boxes. So if you don't see response boxes to a few questions that look like that, it's okay. You don't have to worry about those. So just be aware of that if you're a manufacturing operator or an oil refinery operator. And that's actually normal. That's what you should be seeing. Now, the heart of any operator's annual report is the movement of merchandise section. And again, the question numbers will vary depending on what type of operator you are, but the data fields themselves will be the same. So every operator will be asked this information. And as you go through these fields, you'll see there are some boxes that are in gray, or a little bit of a light blue, but that are shaded, we'll say. And those are totals. So those will be actually automatically calculated based on the numbers that you enter. So if you enter the beginning value in domestic status and then the beginning value in foreign status, then it's going to automatically calculate the total. So those are just lines that the system will calculate for you that you do not need to enter information into. The movement of merchandise section, as I said, it's really the heart of your report. This is telling us the activity that was in the activated area of your zone during the year, during calendar year, in this case, 2015. So this is everything that was in your zone, everything that came into your zone, everything that left your zone, and what's still there. So those are the key sections of this table. And it should be all the activity, both foreign and domestic status merchandise, in the activated area of your zone. And when you get to the end of the report, the system will actually run a calculation to see if your numbers here add up. You couldn't have shipped out more than you ever had available, that type of thing. So it is important to check your numbers to make sure your numbers are correct, and also check any rounding issues. The system, anything you enter as dollars and cents, the system is going to round to the nearest whole dollar. And what we have seen come up, and it happens several times each year, is somebody's numbers are very accurate. They're absolutely correct. And they enter them down to the cents. The system rounds them, and there's a rounding area created, and it's even just $1 off when it does the final balance. But they can't submit the report because it's telling them they have a discrepancy. So you're better off, instead of entering the dollars and cents, but doing the rounding yourself and controlling that so that you don't end up with an error message at the end of the report. If you do get an error message, just go back and take a look at your numbers. It could be something like that it's just off, by some prior rounding issue. It's just a very small difference, but the system's just going to recognize it as a difference. So check your numbers if you do have a problem first, and if you're still having any problems submitting, give us a call. Now, scrolling down to the report, again, a section that every operator will have, but the question numbers will vary, is the main categories of foreign status merchandise received. there will be a drop-down list for the categories, and we ask that you just choose the category that best fits your products. We did base those categories on the HTS chapters, and on our knowledge of how FTZs are generally used, some common industries. So it may not be a perfect match from what you think it should be, but there should be something that will fit your product description, and choose the best match. And if all of your merchandise falls into a single category, and they are very broad categories, so if everything falls into the same category but comes from different countries, you don't need to list each country separately. If it's all in one category, you can list it on one line, and then for the main country of origin, again, put the main country of origin, put the country that accounted for the majority of that value. Okay, we're going to keep scrolling down the report, and at the bottom of every report, and again, this is every operator, whether you're warehouse distribution or doing any type of manufacturing production activity, at the very bottom of your report, there will be a total value of shipment section. Now, when we were talking about the movement of merchandise section above, that was just the value of the merchandise. The movement of merchandise is what you report to CBP. The total value of shipments is to capture what actually occurred, that value of that U.S. value that occurred in your zone. So it is something that is very different, and the numbers should be different, even for warehouse distribution operators. We are asking for something different here. The total value of the total value of shipment section should be not only the merchandise value, but it should also include any value added in your zone. So we say labor, profit, overhead there. An easy way of, probably the easiest way of estimating it, if you don't have any other numbers, is taking a look at the cost of labor, the cost of the employees that are in the activated area, and any facility costs. If you have a building in your activated area, what are the costs associated with operating that facility, and add that to what you reported as the merchandise forwarded. So that gives you the value of the merchandise plus value added, and that's what you should be reporting in this section. If you have a sales value, you can also use that. That would be an even simpler way of reporting the total value of shipments. So if you have a sales value, you can use that as the total value of shipments. Again, that would be the value of the merchandise as it actually leaves the zone. This is a section that we have not yet included in any of our reports to Congress or in anything else publicly. We've been trying very hard, and actually I've been working with NAFTZ to really solidify the numbers here, to get numbers that we can feel confident about. And we know there has been a lot of confusion and concerns about how to come up with this number, how to report this number. And we ask that if you do have any questions or aren't sure where the numbers should be coming from, to please give us a call. We would really like to be able to let Congress know the value of all of the activity that you're conducting in foreign trade zones. And this will be our way of doing that. And I know the association is very interested in having that information also. I mean, truly, we're not able to capture, without this information, we're not able to capture the real value of what you're doing here in the U.S., and we would like to be able to. So again, if you have any questions about how to report this or where the numbers should be coming from, please let us know. But generally speaking, if you, as an FTZ operator, have any employees or have a building in your FTZ area, then this number, the total value of shipments, will always be larger than the value of the merchandise forwarded. And it's something that you can check before you hit submit on your report. Okay. We're going to move on now. We're going to keep scrolling down to the bottom of the report. And as an operator, you have the option of letting us know whether or not the information that you've submitted, the numbers, the values, are business proprietary. So make sure that you don't gloss over this question, and let us know if those numbers that you're providing you do consider to be business proprietary. You can just check yes or no at the bottom of the page. And with that, we've gotten to the bottom and we're ready to hit submit. And again, when we hit submit, we're sending it to our grantee. Uh-oh. Now, as I mentioned before, there are a few checks that the system will do on what's been provided in the report. And one of those is all the fields must have responses. So in this case, we got an error message that says we did not respond to all of the questions. So we need to go back and fill in any questions that are missing and respond anywhere where we did not. So that is one possibility that you might see when you hit submit. And another possibility, and this we mentioned earlier, is that one of the calculations the system is doing will come up and say, hey, there's a discrepancy. And in this case, this is the most common one that we see. There's a discrepancy in the movement of merchandise section. So the numbers don't add up. Maybe we shipped out more than we ever received or had in hand. Somehow there's not a balance there, and the system's telling us to go back and take a look. Again, one common reason we see for this is rounding errors. So go back and take a look at your numbers. First of all, make sure they are correct. Check for any rounding errors or any issues along those lines. And it's also possible that for some reason, even though your numbers don't add up correctly, but there's a reason for that. You know, every year we see a few cases come up where something strange has happened in the zone that year, or there's some reason, there's some valid reason for the discrepancy. And if that's the case, that's fine. You can leave the numbers alone and just explain to us what has caused that discrepancy. And there is a box provided for you to do that. So once we've made any corrections or provided an explanation for any discrepancies, you can scroll down to the bottom of the page again and hit submit again. And this time, it lets us know that it has been submitted. So the request has now been submitted, and it gives us an option. We can go back to the report and take a look at it, and it will show us that it's been submitted, or we can go back to the welcome page. And we're actually going to go back to the welcome page, and imagine that you've logged in, you logged out, now you're logging back in, and you want to go back and find your report and check the status of it. So we're going to go back to the welcome page. And again, imagine we've just logged in fresh. So it's the current year's report still. So we're still going to click on that work on my new annual report. And when we click on it this time, you can see it says the status is submitted. And it will give you actually the date and time that that was done. So if you need to print it out for your records, or you know, you just want to confirm that it was done and that we did receive it, or that, excuse me, that the grantee did receive it, then you can go back in and view that here. And also, if you realize after you've hit submit that you need to make any changes, that something is incorrect, contact your grantee. Your grantee can unlock the report for you and allow you to make any changes. Of course, keep in mind that the grantee is on a deadline, and the grantee's report must be submitted to us by March 31st. So if you have any changes to make, of course, if it's after that date, we still want it to be correct, but keep in mind that the grantee is under a deadline to get a complete and accurate report to us by that time. So try and make sure early in the reporting cycle that you have the accurate information.
Okay, we've actually got a question for guests that don't direct export from the zone, instead putting everything on a weekly withdrawal. How would they report exports from the zone?
If you're not directly exporting from the zone, but you know that your merchandise will ultimately be exported, then you can report that to us as exports. Or if you know that a certain % is exported, then you can use that to calculate what the export value would be. So even if you're not directly exporting something, if you know that merchandise is exported, you can report it to us as an export. I hope that answered the question. Were there any other questions, or should we move on to the grantees?
I think you're good to move on, and I'll continue to accept those in the question box.
Okay. We're going to move on now to the grantee submissions. So if you're a grantee, we're going to start in the same place. Now we've logged out as a grantee, and you can see in the menu box on the left-hand side, there are different options that are available now. So the grantee actually has a few more options, and one of those is operator account request. So if you're a grantee, it's actually the second from the bottom on the menu on the left. You can see the operator account request. If you have a new company that is activated in your zone, that's where you would go to request an operator account for them. And again, we have slides and videos that on our website that can show you how to do that. So the same thing applies. We're looking at the calendar year 2015 report, and through December 31st of this year, to access that, we're going to click on the Work on My New Annual Report section. So we're going to click there as grantee, and you'll see the screen that comes up for a grantee is quite different than what happens for an operator. In the annual report section, the grantee has quite a few options and things to look at. We're actually going to start at the bottom of the page. One of the things that we'll display for a grantee at the bottom of the page is all of the operators within its zone that are working on their report. So they've either submitted it, and you'll see it's in blue then if it's submitted, or it's in draft status. They've started working on it, but they're not finished yet, and you'll see those show up in red. And next to each one, on the right-hand side, there's an open button. So the grantee can open any of those reports and take a look at what the operator has submitted. Moving up the screen a little bit, the next section says operators that have not submitted annual reports. And we'll have a list of operator account usernames in red if the system has not received a submitted or draft report for that operator account. Now this section of the report is simply for your information as grantee. If you know, for example, that the operator listed here has not had any activity in this reporting cycle in calendar year 2015, then you can go ahead and finalize and submit your report. So the fact that an operator is listed here is not going to have any impact on your ability to submit your report as grantee. It's simply for your information. Now, if you know, for example, that this operator is not using the zone and is unlikely in the near future to need to use the zone, you can go ahead and ask us to remove that operator account. And of course, if they come back and reactivate, we can always add it back in later. But if you want to clean up your page, if you have some operator accounts that are no longer needed, just let us know. We can remove them. But it is okay. If you know they had no activity, then you can leave them, and they will display in this section, but you can still submit your report.
And is it possible to print the form in edit mode, or does the report have to be submitted first? Then you have the option to print it.
I believe you can print it. Actually, it's a good question. Let me just scroll through a little bit here. Okay, I will go back. We won't skip all those pages. But in this view, we are in edit mode of the grantee's report. Oh, no, that's an operator report. I'm sorry. Let me just scroll through a minute here. We will go back. Yes, okay. So the same is true in the grantee report. I had to double check on that myself. When you're in edit mode in the grantee's report, the print button is still there. And of course, you could use the print option in your browser also, but you can print up a report before you have submitted and finalized it. So we're going to go back now. Let's see, where were we? Okay. So again, that's just for your reference. What we're going to do now is take a look at one of those operator reports back at the bottom of the page. So we're going to click on that open button next to it. And this is something you will need to do as grantee for each one of your operator reports. So in order to finalize and submit your report as grantee, you will need to open each operator report and submit it. So that lets us know that you as grantee have taken a look at it, because the report that comes from your zone is of course the grantee's report. It is the report for the entire zone. And although we know the grantee is not preparing the numbers, the grantee doesn't know that level of detail into an operator's information and operations, but does the information seem to match up with what you know they're doing? And there's a few things we're going to look at that a grantee can look for specifically. But we want to know that you as grantee have at least taken a quick look at your operator's report. So we're going to look at that right now. We're going to open up this one. And when you open it up, there will be an edit button at the top. And you will need to click the edit button in order to submit the report as grantee and finalize it. And also, if you need to make any changes, if an operator has contacted you and said, please change this in my report, this is how you would change that also. You would need to click the edit button. And I want to point this out also, because one useful thing that will pop up for you as grantee when you click on the edit button in an operator's report, you have an option of unlocking that report. So if an operator has submitted their report to you, then you can go back in, click edit, open that report, and then unlock it. So you have the option of unlocking an operator's report. You can then save it as a draft, and the operator can log in later and make any changes that are needed. So that's good for you to know as grantee. That is how you would unlock an operator's report.
And if an operator had no activity in the year, do they still submit a report?
Good question. We don't need reports from operators if they had no FTZ activity. So from our perspective, that operator would not need to submit a report. However, some grantees do require that anyone that is activated or even anyone that has a site submit a report, and that's the grantee's way of confirming that the operator had no activity. So if the grantee doesn't know you had any activity, they may require the report from you, or the grantee may have other reporting requirements and use Office as a way to do it. So if you're an operator and you're not sure if you need to submit a report, contact your grantee to see what they need. If you're a grantee wondering what we require, then we only need the reports from those operators that had actual FTZ activity. But the grantee does have discretion there on when to require a report. Okay. Now, for the most part, a grantee is not going to know if the numbers in an operator's report are correct. Again, just take a look. Does it seem to match with what you know that they're doing at a very big picture level? One thing that is very important that a grantee can do, we spent a lot of time in the operator section talking about the total value of shipments. So one very important function for a grantee is to take a look at what the operator has reported in the total value of shipments section, and is it the same or greater than what they've reported as merchandise forwarded. So if it appears that they've not reported this correctly, if it appears that the total value of shipments section isn't what it should be, contact the operator or contact us. We can take a look at it also and let us know if it seems the same to us. And we'll even reach out to the operator for you if you'd like. But that is something very important that a grantee can do, because again, especially with the warehouse distribution activity in your zones, we're only seeing the totals that are reported for your zone, and you're seeing the individual reports. So we're not going to have the same level of detail on the warehouse distribution operators as we're reviewing what's been submitted that you do. So it's really up to the grantees, if there's a problem in the total value of shipment section, to take a look and catch it. And again, if you have any questions about what should be reported, just let us know. So once you've scrolled through the report, is the total value shipments greater than the merchandise forwarded? Does it appear it should be? There will be a submit button at the bottom, and click the submit button. And again, that just lets us know that you as the grantee have scrolled through it. And when you hit that submit button in your operator's reports, it will give you the same screen that the operators see, and you can either go back to that operator's report or go back to the welcome page. So what we're actually going to do is go back to the welcome page and then go back into the work on my new annual report page. It's a little bit faster way of getting around. And you'll see, so we're back on the work on my new annual report page, and the report that we were just looking at, the operator's report, now shows up as submitted, and it's been submitted by the grantee. So you can scroll through this list, and before you finalize your report as grantee, make sure that all the operator's reports display as submitted and submitted by you as the grantee. Okay, we're going to take a look at another section in the grantees page now. It says click below to input operator information for A, and it gives you a list of the different types of operators. Where this is most useful for you as a grantee is if you have an operator that's deactivated mid-year, they would not have been able to fill in the information for their annual report. So say they deactivated in June of 2015, the 2015 activity report would not yet be available. So if that happens, make sure at the time they deactivate that you get the annual report information from them, and then when it comes time to submit the report, you can use this section to input their information directly, so none of the activity in your zone is missing for the year. And you can use this section also to get blank templates for an operator to fill out and make sure you have the information that you need. And also, you can contact us if an operator is deactivating, and we can send you a blank template of information for them to fill out. The example that we're going to look at in this case is an oil refinery operator. And what will happen when you click on that option, you will get a drop-down message. It looks like there might be a little bit of a delay. Okay, hopefully you're seeing things now. I just realized there might be a little bit more of a delay than I thought there. When the page comes up, you'll have a drop-down list, and you'll see in this case we have one option. It will give you a list of those types of operators that have not yet submitted or even done a draft report for that reporting period. So in this case, we only have one that comes up. So there's one oil refinery operator that has not submitted a complete or draft report, and that's the only option that we will receive there. And once you click on that, select the one. Of course, if there's more, there would be more options. Once you select that operator by the username, the company and contact information will populate. So that should be a confirmation for you that you have selected the correct operator. Now, just like any of the operator accounts, or any of the operator reports, you will need to answer all the questions to be able to submit the operator report. In some cases, you'll have to say first whether or not there was even activity. If you're filling it out as grantee, you probably are not doing that unless there was actual activity. But otherwise, the same report fields will come up that the operators see when they open up their reports. And again, you will need to complete respond to all the questions before you can finalize the report. And once you have responded to all the questions, you'll scroll down to the bottom of the page and click the Submit button. And the system will run the same checks on the information that it does when the operator themselves submits the report. So with that, in this example we're using, we're going to say that we have now finalized the reports from all of our operators, and we're going to go to the very top of the screen where it says FTZ Annual Report, and this will be the report that is actually submitted to the FTZ board for the zone. So all of the information for your zone will be contained in this report. So after we click on that link, if we have gone in before and saved it as a draft, what we will need to do is click the Edit button before we can make any changes or finalize the report. So just be aware, if you have saved it in the past, you will need to click Edit before you can finalize. And just like with the operator reports, once you click Edit, there will be a Save as Draft button that appears, so you can always save it again and come back to it at a later time. Now, for all grantees, there will be a few text-based questions towards the top of the report for you to answer. If you had no activity, one of the first questions actually is, was there any FTZ activity? If there was no FTZ activity, you have a couple of text-based questions and you're done. That's all there is to report. We're going to actually look at the example of a grantee that did have activity within its zone, because that is where it gets a little bit more complicated. So the main page of your zone's report, what the system is doing is adding up all the information from your warehouse distribution operators, and those are the operators whose account names start with WHS. So it would be adding up all the information from those operators and reporting it on the main page of your report. If you think the numbers look low, just remember that any manufacturing, production, oil refinery operators are not being included in these totals. Those are going to be attached separately and sent to us when you hit submit. So we're still getting that information and still being associated with your zone, But all we're doing on this page is adding up the warehouse distribution activity. So you'll see there'll be several columns in your report. And the column more towards the center that's shaded is what the system has added up from your WHS operators reports for the warehouse distribution activity in your zone. The column on the right that's not shaded is what will actually be submitted to the FTZ board as the warehouse distribution activity from your zone. So you can see in this case that's still blank. Even if the grantee has no changes to make to its warehouse operators data, if you tried to hit submit right now, it would tell you not all the questions have been answered. So one of the things we're going to have to do is let the system know that do we want to use the numbers that the warehouse operators have submitted, or do we need to make any changes? Now, as grantee, you can always make any changes. If for any reason a change needs to be made, it is your report as grantee, and you can directly type in responses in that column on the right-hand side. Now, for the most part, grantees don't need to do that. For the most part, grantees will be using the numbers that have been submitted by the warehouse distribution operators. And if that's the case, you'll notice above question 7, there's a button that says Use Numbers. And we're going to click on that button, and what will display, you'll see suddenly the numbers in that column, the shaded column, have jumped into the column on the right-hand side. So the grantee, in doing that, has just told us that we're using the warehouse distribution operator numbers as they've been submitted. The system has added them up. You have no changes to make. It's going to populate them directly into that column. And again, if you need to make any edits, you could still do it to that data on the right, in the column on the right-hand side. But for the most part, a grantee will not need to. You can just use what has been provided. One other thing I want to point out while we're on this screen, if you go in and save your report as a draft, and then you have any warehouse distribution operators that make any changes or finalize and submit their report after that point, what you may need to do is also above question 7, there is the other button that says Update Numbers. So if you have saved your report as a draft, you might want to click the Update Numbers button first, just to make sure that it's capturing the latest data from your warehouse distribution operators. And then you could click the Use Numbers. So again, if things don't look right and you think it's not adding up correctly, try clicking the Update Numbers button first and see if that updates or corrects the number that you see in the shaded column. Okay, we're going to scroll down a little bit now in the grantee's report. Here's another one of the quirks in the system. So earlier we talked about the operators that were reporting the main categories of foreign status merchandise received. That same box will appear in the grantee's report, and again, it should be reporting all the warehouse distribution activity for the zone, but you can see it's blank, and that's exactly what you'll see. Even if you had 20 different warehouse distribution operators importing, and each one had 5 different categories. Unfortunately, we did have some trouble with the programming, and the compromise that we developed with the programmer was that box still displays, but you'll see there is also a button that says click here for a summary, and that's right next to that red arrow. And if you click that button, it will show you all the information, all the categories of merchandise and value and countries submitted by your operators, and that's what it's actually going to send to us. So don't be concerned when you see this blank. You can click the summary box, see what's actually being submitted. If you have no changes to make to what your operators have submitted, then you don't need to do anything here. It's okay that these appear to be blank. It's actually giving us what's in that summary box. So we say every box needs a response. This is really the exception, but we are getting what's in that summary box. And if you're not making any changes, you don't need to do anything. You can submit it just as it looks here. Again, that's a little quirk that another thing we would like fixed with the system. But the good news is you don't have to do anything separate as grantee. So moving on down now to the bottom of the screen, there will be another list of all the operator reports submitted for your zone. So even in your report here as grantee, if there's something that you want to take a look at, you can open any of your operator reports, take a final look, and also, very importantly, what will display here, in addition to your operator reports, on the column on the right-hand side, it will let you know if those operators have submitted their reports as business proprietary or not. And if any of your operators have submitted their reports as business proprietary, then you as grantee should also select yes to the business, is the information considered business proprietary? And you'll see that yes, no radio box at the bottom of the screen there, and that's your final question. With that, you can hit the submit button. So we're going to hit the submit button, and when the grantee hits submit, it's a little bit different. For the grantee's report, you can see there are now 3 options instead of 2. So first of all, it does tell us that it has been submitted, and we can go back to the FTZ report, to the grantee's report that we were just looking at. We can go back to the Work on My Annual Report page, or we can go back to the Office Welcome page. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the operators. We're going to imagine that we're logging in at some point later and want to access the report that we've submitted. So to do that, we are going to go to the Welcome page. All right. And from the Welcome page, again, we're going to click on the Work on My New Annual Report. Even though we've already submitted it, it's still the current year's report. So we're going to click on Work on My New Annual Report. And from there, we actually clicked on the FTZ Annual Report. And you can see, again, it says Submitted, and it will give you the date and time. So if you need to print this out for your records or want to confirm that it was done, when it says Submitted, we have received it, and you are done. We have a few minutes still, so we're going to cover a few tips. We all know, if anyone has used the system, there are quirks to Office, and we've actually taken several suggestions from an NAFTZ and changes that people would like to see, and we will be working on developing a new system, and we've taken those all, and we are providing those. So hopefully, in the future, we can get some of these issues resolved. In the meantime, if possible, use Internet Explorer. We have seen some issues come up on some other browsers. Internet Explorer does seem to work the best. Safari also seems to work if you don't have access to Internet Explorer, but if at all possible, try Internet Explorer. One other thing that's not on here, but I will mention, if you are logging in for more than one grantee or more than one operator account, you will actually need to physically close out the browser between logging in. So if it will actually save your login information. If you just try and log out and log back in as a different username, you won't be able to. So physically close out the browser. You might need to clear the browser history also. But if you are having problems with that, trying to log in as a different operator or grantee account name, then let us know. We can help you out with that. But you will need to at least physically close out the browser and possibly clear the browsing history also. And a few other things, and some of these we've already discussed, but we'll just re-emphasize. In the movement of merchandise section, in all operator types, try to enter whole numbers. Control the rounding process yourself so that you don't get an unexpected discrepancy when you go to submit your report. Make sure that will help make sure that the numbers do add up the way you meant them to. And again, the total value of shipment section. So the total value should be greater than the merchandise only value. So the total value section at the very bottom of the report, if you have any employees or any facility costs in the activated area of the zone, will be higher than the merchandise value. The probably easiest way of remembering that. And again, what we're asking for in these reports is the activity from the activated area of the FTZ. There are some very limited exceptions where domestic status merchandise should not be reported in the annual report, but for the most part, all domestic and foreign status merchandise in the activated area of the FTZ should be included. And if you think you're one of those exceptions, please contact us because it is very limited what those would apply to. Generally speaking, all domestic and foreign status merchandise in the activated area should be included. And the same is true with employment. You should give us the number of employees that are in the activated area. If you have, say, a large manufacturing facility with thousands of employees, but the only thing that's activated as an FTZ is a small warehouse, then it's not really appropriate to put the total number of employees, thousands of employees, as working in that zone. You would just put the employment or the number of employees that are associated with the area that's actually activated. And the last one applies both to grantees and operators, especially manufacturing or oil refinery operators. If there are any changes to your activity, let us know. One of the things that we do when we're following up and checking the numbers in the report is if there are big changes on a year-to-year basis, either increases or decreases, we'll probably be reaching out to you, phone calls or emails. Are these numbers really correct? So if there is a change in the values, let us know. There are questions that ask that, so let us know. You might avoid having to do some follow-up with our staff, and the same is true with grantees. Is there a big change in the level of activity at your zone? Let us know. And there are text-based questions where you can do that. So just let us know if there are any changes. And I mentioned before, at any page in Office, you can access the tutorials section. So if you're having any problems, you can't reach anyone in our office, hypothetically speaking, if a major blizzard hit DC and suddenly the federal government is shut down and you're working on your report and you can't get in touch with us, we do have tutorials available. We have both slides and videos. And the videos will actually, if you're an operator, they will walk you through each individual operator type. So you can see all the questions and how to respond based on your operator type. So again, you can call us, you can email us at any time, but even if we're not available, you can always check the tutorial section.
And should the number of employees be full-time equivalent?
Oh, good point. Thank you for mentioning that. Yes, the number of employees should be a full-time equivalent. So simplified example, but say you have 20 part-time employees and they're each, say, maybe you say it's 10 full-time equivalents. Use your best guess, really your best estimate of what the appropriate number is. But no, that's an excellent point that it should be full-time equivalents, and it should include both direct employment and contract employment. So if most of the employees actually working in the zone are contractors, they're still working in that zone, even if they're not directly employed by your company. So yes, thank you for bringing that up. It should be both direct and contract employees on a full-time equivalent basis. Okay, so a final reminder, each zone's annual report is due to us by March 31st. So by that date, the grantee must have received, compiled, and reviewed all of the operator reports for its zone. So for the most part, grantees give their operators an earlier deadline to make sure that all of those reports can be received and reviewed on time for the report to be submitted to us. Grantees, if you have not given your operators a date, it's a good idea to do so, to reach out to them. First of all, make sure they're aware of it, and then provide a date that you need the report submitted. The date does vary by zone, so if you're not sure what date your grantee needs it, reach out to them also if you're an operator. We have had a great response rate the past few years. We know operators and grantees have really been working hard to get these done on time. It showed, and we really appreciate it. We are still focused on the timeliness of submissions. We are under pressure to get the report to Congress as soon as possible, and we do need as accurate a report as possible in the time provided. If you're having any problems as a grantee finding any of your operators, getting responses from them, please let us know as soon as possible. We can work with you on that. If you're an operator and you're having any issues with the report, please also let us know as soon as possible. We really are here to help you with this. We know it's difficult, especially when you only use a system like this once a year, and it is quirky. We realize that. So we know that, we understand it, so please reach out to us with any problems that you're having. We will also be, our office will also be holding free webinars. I think we have one more scheduled each for operators and grantees. So if you're a grantee and you have any operators that still need some assistance and want to listen in to our next operator call, I believe it's on February 10th, and we have one for grantees later in the month of February, and that information also is on our website, and there are no charge to those either. So if you need a refresher or you know of anyone else that might be interested, there are more resources available there for you also. We're almost at our time, but we probably have a few minutes for any questions. But the contact information here is here also, so please reach out to us with any questions or any problems that you're having with the system.
If an operator manages multiple sites within the same with the same grantee, can the operator file one report combining all the sites?
Another good question. From our perspective, that is fine. If an operator has multiple sites within the same zone, then we only need one report from that operator. The key is to check with your grantee, make sure that they're okay with that also. Some grantees might want a different report for each site, and if so, then the operator will need to do that. But we just need to make sure that all the information from that zone is received from that operator. So from the FTZ board perspective, one report from that operator would be fine.
And what would you say is the major takeaway from the presentation today?
I would say never hesitate to reach out to us. There's a lot of information that's being requested here, and we know it can be difficult to pull together and to figure out what to do. So I think the major takeaway is know that there is help out there for you, and you can always reach out to us by phone or by email with any questions or any problems that you're having. This report is, sorry. Oh, I'll just say one more thing. I'll just emphasize that this report is very important. Not only is it required by law that grantees submit it to us and that we submit a report to Congress, but this really is the information that you're providing shows what's going on in this program, and it shows the value of this program, and it is very important for us to get accurate information on what is going out there. So please understand that it's not just the paperwork exercise that we've created for you. There is a lot of value to this information. Sorry, go ahead.
I know you talked about troubleshooting and different challenges that people have faced in filing the report. Can you talk about maybe one instance, or maybe one of your more unique instances of a challenge you faced and how you overcame it?
As we've been using the system for a few years, we tend to see a lot of the same issues creep up. And a big one of those is the rounding errors in the movement of merchandise section. And even just basic issues accessing the report, you typing your login information in directly instead of copying and pasting. A lot of the things that we see creeping up are things that we've seen before, which is another reason why if you are having issues, we probably can help you resolve them very quickly. We haven't seen too many unique things in terms of how the system works. It does tend to be, the same quirks or issues that appear for different operators and users.
Great. So if we get any additional questions, of course, we will pass those along to Liz. And of course, her information is also featured on our screen right now. So thank you first and foremost to Liz Whiteman for making this webinar possible, as well as all of you on the line. Please keep your screen open as a survey will immediately come up on your screen. Thank you.